All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the RTI Press Pass podcast. We are back in Neyland Stadium after another Tennessee win, their 7th of the season, as Tennessee looks to continue their playoff push here in the back half of the season. This right here is Ryan Schumpert. I am Rick Butler. Fair warning, it's about 1:30 in the morning as we start this podcast, so bear with us a little bit. It might be a little bit delusionally fun. I'm not sure how the last 10 minutes are going to go. That's where kind of things sometimes get off the rails, but hey, just real quick, how you doing? Late night, back in the stadium. What's going on?
Doing well. It kind of feels like, the dramatic, the meme where it's like, Jesus or God's like, stop giving me your toughest battles, and then it's like you're literally just having to cover an SEC football game at night. That's how I feel right now.
Yeah.
Another night game, but doing well. Late here, but a lot to talk about, and certainly a frustrating game at times for Tennessee, but also I think there's some exciting stuff, especially when it pertains to Nico.
Yeah, I think ultimately you look at this game, and from the 30,000-foot view, there was some familiarity. There was some familiarity in Tennessee's struggles to get the ball offensively moving, especially in the first half. There was some familiarity with the way that the defense was able to really settle down and stop Kentucky's offense there, especially leading into halftime. But there are also some different things that you haven't necessarily seen in the last couple of weeks. You saw what, to me, was a really good performance from Nico Iamaleava, one that he can build on, and one that Josh Heupel was certainly complimentary of afterwards. Yeah. You saw continued work from Dylan Sampson, who, like you kind of mentioned during our instant reaction show, had a little bit of a sneaky 27 carries, which, is kind of funny to say when you look back at the box score. But, as we kind of sit here a couple hours removed from the game, up here in the press box now, what's going through your mind? What are you thinking about? Is it offense? Is it defense? Is it something particular from the game? What's going through your head?
Well, I think it's kind of a combination of two things, and one that I was thinking of a lot throughout the game, and then as I was finishing up something before we recorded, you had a voluntary reaction on it, and Russell Smith, I think, summed it up pretty well.
Yes.
I just don't think the big click is coming for this offense. It's not going to all of a sudden become really pretty. And I think that's very accurate. That's something I was kind of been thinking. Like, it felt like if it was going to happen, this was going to be the game to kind of start propelling it. But at the same time, and there's an element of you are what you are. Despite the fact that Tennessee had 250 yards in the first half, they only scored 7 points. So that's all you're good for.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think there is, to me, some excitement with how well I thought Nico Iamaleava played tonight. Like I just thought he played really well. I thought he played a great game, frankly. And maybe it's not going to feel like that to everybody. Maybe it didn't feel like that watching it. But the stats, you throw that aside, the stats were pretty good. They could have been elite if a couple plays get made by his receivers. It just felt like he made some really, really big-time throws tonight. Limited the mistakes, and then some of those big-time throws came in really big moments.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I think you summed that up really nicely. There is growth to be had in this season. I think you've seen growth this season, but there's not going to be a 314-yard first-half performance against Mississippi State next week. That's not going to propel Tennessee into Georgia. I think if you're looking at this team, you understand that there's going to be little improvements, that they're going to try to take steps each week in practice, but ultimately we have an idea about what this team is overall. We have an idea about what this offense is. This is not like Josh Heupel's previous teams. This is a defensive-led team.
Yeah.
Can the offense do enough to put points on the scoreboard to keep the ball out of the opposing team's hands? Can they do enough throughout the game? Obviously, Tennessee continues to struggle with that a little bit in the first half, and a turnover certainly did not help that effort. But I liked the growth that you saw. And it wasn't always pretty today. There were some ugly moments. But you talk about Nico Iamaleava, man, there were some really impressive throws. Some of those throws that made you just sit back and say, wow. Some people, I've seen some discourse online about, obviously Nico's season and what it has been or what it hasn't been. The kind of player he is after all the hype. Man, you look at some of those throws out there on the field. You look at the throw from the far hash to the far sideline. Yeah. You just think to yourself, wow, that's impressive. So I do think that those throws are in the bag for him. I think that there needs to be continued growth. But you're right. I think we have a pretty good 8 games in. We've got a pretty good understanding of what this thing is.
Yeah, I think we've seen some of those throws, but there's no surprise to see him make some big throws. But I think what was encouraging about tonight is that he made those big throws on big spots. Big third. The one you're talking about in the hash was a third down conversion. The throw, I think, one of at least the biggest plays of the night on what seemed like a bad third down play call. I think they were trying to get Dylan Sampson out in the flat, very well defended. He just throws it to really tight coverage to Dante Thornton on the run, right where it needed to be. He makes the catch. Like, that was a big-time throw. He made a couple other ones on the move that were nice. For him to do that in big shots or big spots, and then combine that with didn't really put the ball – one time tonight he put the ball into harm's way. He should have been intercepted on a throw out of his own end zone when he had pressure in his face, and he sailed one over Mike Matthews' head, and really the Kentucky safety. It was a very bad drop. But besides that, it didn't feel like he put the ball in harm's way a whole lot. And it felt like, to me, that was one of the big takeaways that are coming off of the Alabama game points. Can Nico and the offense stack what was a good second half, and can they continue that against Kentucky? I don't know that I don't really think we saw it from the offense as a whole. I think it's hard to say that when they scored 7 points in the first half, but I do think we saw that from Nico.
So Nico Iamaleava, 292 yards on the night, which is a season high against anybody not named Chattanooga.
Yeah.
And then also 38 passing attempts. You talked about just the ability to see Nico and make these plays. Well, you saw that because he threw it a hell of a lot more than he had been in previous games. Previously, his season high this year was 29 against Arkansas. We're talking attempts. He had 28 against Chattanooga. Again, that was in the first half. That was a little bit wild. But Tennessee really, they gave him the ball. They asked him to throw it around. And frankly, Tennessee just ran a ton of plays tonight. Again, we talked about 27 carries from Dylan Sampson. Peyton Lewis even added in 8 himself. Nico had 7 on the run himself. But then you get to those 38 attempts as well. Again, 292 yards and the touchdown. Touchdown was really nice to Miles Kitselman. But again, you see some of that off-balanced work. And that's something that I think that we've seen from, a non-coach's perspective, a non-coaching point of view, that hey, you can see it on the field with your own 2 eyes. He can sometimes be creative in those kind of moments. I thought, once again, his off-balanced work was something that Tennessee was advantageous to the Vols tonight, and something that I felt like they continue to do.
Yeah, 100%. Less design stuff on the move than we've seen, which is maybe a little bit surprising. But at the same time, I think Tennessee, again, had another good game pass protecting. And I would compliment the offensive line after how bad they were against
some early
Oklahoma
rotation
and Arkansas, and then weren't very good against Florida either. I thought, for a second straight game, they were pretty good tonight. And certainly not perfect. Again, this offensive line is just, it is what it is. It's not a very good unit, but they do seem to be getting better as the year goes on. And while it's far from a strength, they're not the liability. It doesn't right now, at least. Georgia might exploit this, but they don't feel like the liability that they were earlier in the season.
Yeah, by the way, Gerald Mincy did not play for Kentucky tonight. If you were following RTI throughout the week, which if you're not, why aren't you? You should be. It's the best information you can find. Gerald Mincy did not play for Kentucky tonight as he was battling that injury. I want to mention one more thing about Nico that you had told me after the game that was fascinating, that we talked about it during the postgame a little bit. 292 yards is a pretty good night, especially if it leads to a win. But, man, that number could have even been bigger, couldn't it have?
Yeah, for sure. The 2 big plays. Chris Brazell dropped a deep pass. I think that would have been a 48-yard touchdown. And then I thought maybe his best throw of the night, again on a third down, when Tennessee's, I guess, third to last drive, trying 3-point game, trying to ice the game. Chaz Nimrod, he works through his progressions left and just fires an absolute dart between the safety and the corner, right in stride of Chaz Nimrod. There had been no one between him and the end zone. He drops it. That would have, I think, been a 67-yard touchdown maybe.
Yeah.
Essentially, you put those together, you already said 28-38. He's then 30-38 with over 400 yards passing and 3 touchdowns and no interceptions. So, the stats can always be a little bit misleading in anything, especially quarterback numbers. And then while his stats were good tonight, his stats were the best they've been, like you said, besides the Chattanooga game. They easily could have been really, really, or a lot better. Probably a better way of putting that.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Sticking with the offense a little bit, it would be hard to go this long in the podcast without mentioning Tennessee running back Dylan Sampson, who not only tied Tennessee's single-season all-time touchdown record with his first touchdown. That was number 18 on the year. But then he gets his second one in a big scrum of a pile. You referred to it perfectly as a
rugby scrum.
There you go, rugby scrum.
I wasn't sure what I referred to it as at first.
Oh, well, you did a pretty good job with the first one. Or I don't know if that just came off the top, but it was good. You even saw Nico, the quarterback, getting in there and
yeah.
pushing a little bit. He said in his press conference after the game, he felt like he might have made a little bit of a difference. I don't know. He might have to rewatch the tape. I might have to as well. But then the second touchdown passes Gene McEver for the all-time single-season touchdown record for the Tennessee Volunteers with 19. And there's still a couple of games to go. What he's put together this season, I didn't think that today was necessarily his best game. Still had 141 yards on the day, which is phenomenal. SEC leading 142 yards to whatever that total is. But, man, he's just put together a remarkable season so far and has been the true engine of this Tennessee. Yes, the passing game got nearly 300 yards tonight. Could have had 400, but continues to be the engine that Tennessee needs.
Yeah, it feels like a very similar script where he's going to run for like 40 yards in the first half and then 75 to 100 somewhere in that range in the second half. And that was the case again tonight. Just really, really solid. I mean, I guess the one thing kind of changing gears like with the passing offense, it still feels like they're not great in the red zone. It just needs to be a lot of Dylan Sampson touches. And he was really good. As he has been, got a lot of tough yards in this game. I mean, his first touchdown run was a really nice run, breaking a tackle. I like the way they used him in a little swing pass tonight too. It's nothing new here, but he's the best player on this Tennessee offense. He's at 32 career touchdowns now at this point, rushing touchdowns. That is 37 from Gene McEver.
Yes.
Apologies if his grandchildren are listening if I mispronounced that or something.
Well, you followed my lead, so I also apologize if we both got it wrong.
So he's 5 off of that.
I don't think so, though.
He's 5 off of that. He's tied for third right now with Josh Dobbs, actually. And I think James Littleman Stewart's in there, too, as well, between them. So the pace he's at right now, I mean, there's 4 games left, and then if he's in the playoffs, obviously, since he's in the playoffs, obviously he's going to play. If it's a bowl game, I imagine he'll opt out. But the pace he's at, it's hard to think he's not going to at least tie that. So, and for a guy that really only got a bunch of carries for 2 seasons, it's pretty incredible. He's having a special season, undoubtedly.
You know, back in the day, my dad would call me Little Man in honor of James Stewart.
How about that?
I didn't become a high-end running back, though.
No.
I stayed pretty little. I just didn't become a running back ever. Talk about a guy who's not little, Peyton Lewis. He got some reps. Big, strong guy, Peyton Lewis, big, strong freshman who saw some work against Chattanooga, North Carolina State, and Kent State. Hadn't seen any time in between then. I believe he had about 118 coming into this game, something like that. Still looking for his first touchdown. Deshaun Bishop goes down a little bit banged up after just 1 carry on the day so far. So Tennessee had to turn to the freshman. And man, he put together 1 big drive for Tennessee.
I think all 8 of those carries maybe were on the same drive.
I think they were too, and he ends it by punching it in into the checkerboards for his first career touchdown. But just another little element that Tennessee was able to get out of that. Obviously, you can't give Dylan Sampson every single carry in the game. You got to give him some kind of spell. If Bishop wasn't able to go, who's been very solid for Tennessee in that backup role, they put the ball in Peyton Lewis's hands, and again, 25 yards on the day, 24, whatever it was, is not, nothing
flashy.
Nothing flashy or anything like that, but he did his job when he came in, I felt like.
Yeah, I mean, that was Tennessee's first touchdown drive of the game, too, and they largely just leaned on the run. So, he wasn't, like, phenomenal or anything. He didn't do anything to wow me and be like, wow, Peyton Lewis has to be playing. Yeah. But he was solid, and he got the yards over the air and finished it off with a touchdown run when Tennessee went with that jumbo package with a couple of defensive linemen in there. Like they did, I guess that was in the Florida game. So, a good showing for him. Like you said, Deshaun Bishop got hurt earlier in the game. The way Josh Heupel made it sound, Cam Seldon was at least not 100%. Maybe not available, but not 100% tonight. So it was an opportunity for Peyton Lewis, and he certainly performed pretty well.
No doubt about it. Another guy who performed pretty well, but really to me, this unit performed pretty well. Josh Heupel was complimentary of them after the game. He also said that, hey, there's always going to be stuff to work on, certainly some plays that they wanted back. But I thought it was a really nice performance all around for Tennessee's tight end room, starting with Miles Kitselman, who led Tennessee, actually led all pass catchers in the game by a mile, with 97 yards on the day, 6 receptions, and a big touchdown. We'll get into that touchdown here in a minute, but I like the way that Tennessee's tight ends were able to be effective on the field. And then after the game, Kitselman talking to the media, he basically said, look, we saw that in preparation throughout the week. We knew coming into this game that the tight ends were going to be part of this game plan. We had to go execute, me saying that as him. And certainly he puts up almost 100 yards and a really nice bounce-back effort after the Alabama game. But But I thought that whole tight end room was did well. And again, Tennessee found that they could get an advantage there. I thought they certainly did with the way that Miles played.
Yeah, I mean, 10 targets.
And even Holden, again, I don't have those numbers.
3 for 27 for Holden Stays. But you're right. I mean, 10 targets for the tight end room between those two guys. And Kitselman, I thought, had a couple nice plays, runs after catch that were impressive, and it's not something we've really seen a ton in his game. Obviously, the touchdown he had was another play that was kind of off script. He was on the other side of the field. I'm not even sure he was running a route, to be honest. It looked kind of like a broken play. So he was really solid, and you said it, bounced back performance. He did not play particularly well in that Alabama game 2 weeks ago. And it felt like really from the NC State game on, he had been trending down a little bit. A nice bounce back and a really solid performance from him.
Took a minute to get Dante Thornton on the field.
Yeah. I don't care. He's Tennessee's best receiver. I don't get why he doesn't play more. He's an incredible deep ball threat. Chris Brazel's second drive of the game drops 48-yard touchdown. Look, Brazel's been fine this year, too. It's not like Tennessee's got a bunch of star receivers or anything. But Dante Thornton, to me, has been Tennessee's best receiver. I can hear an argument for Brew McCoy. But he's not out there the third drive of the game. I don't get it. It doesn't make sense to me. It's not like I know he's a big play guy, but he's made some good contested catches, too. I mean, the play we talked about earlier on the big 3rd and 7 on the great throw from Nico. Guy draped all over him, and he makes a nice catch. Like, I don't know. It doesn't add up for me.
Well, and that was one of the things I was going to say was he feels like one of Nico's guys. And Nico is very, complimentary of his wide receivers like you would expect him to be. But I think you can really see it on the field. Dante Thornton is Tennessee's leading receiver this year for a reason. Those two guys have made a couple really nice connections. So I'm with you. Maybe something to look back on, or maybe something to dig into a little bit as Tennessee gets ready for the Mississippi State game.
Tired people begging for Mike Matthews snaps. Wired me begging for Dante Thornton.
I got a text about Mike Matthews just from somebody watching.
I think we all did.
Okay, all right. I'll leave that there. I'm sure we all had similar responses for that one. Okay. One thing that I want to mention before we get over to the defense is, we talked about this game having some familiarities as the last handful of some of Tennessee's games. Not a lot of scoring in the first half, though Tennessee does get on the board with that touchdown from Peyton Lewis that we talked about. But that was one of those things where even though that was a little bit familiar, something that we saw against Alabama and Florida, Tennessee had more chances than they did in those other two games. Tennessee got down to near Kentucky's red zone. I know that you'll give these stats out better than I am, just trying to set it up. But Tennessee was hurt by its special teams units tonight. And that was an area that they could have put more points up on the board. Max Gilbert goes 0 for 3 during the course of the game today, does hit his PATs after Tennessee's touchdowns. But those field goals, especially in the first half, were a big reason that Tennessee was not on the board because the offense did get the ball down the field a little bit. What did you just make of that struggle for Tennessee there tonight?
It's just a continued theme, and a little bit of what I talked about. I don't think they've been able to throw the ball very well in the red zone, which limits a little bit of what they can do. And I think the stat is Tennessee had 6 drives in the first half. One of those drives, they got the ball back with 30 seconds left in the half and no timeouts. The other 5, 4 of them got to the Kentucky 22-yard line or further. 2 of them, one got to the 15, one got to the 18, and the Tennessee both went backwards on both of those, and it ended up missing field goals. And obviously that makes the field goals a lot longer. And look, Max Gilbert missed a 34-yarder in the second half too, so it's not like he was only having issues with long field goals tonight. But those self-inflicted mistakes, making the kicks longer, more difficult for Max Gilbert, certainly doesn't help. But at the same time, Max Gilbert's got to hit those kicks. And before tonight, he hadn't missed a kick less than 50 yards all season, if I'm not mistaken. And he misses all 3 of those attempts in that range tonight. And I do think, if the game's 13-10 Tennessee at halftime, and it has a little bit different feel to it with the offense than it did at the half. So while Tennessee's offense has to be a lot better at finishing drives and avoiding some of those mistakes that they cause on their own when they get into the plus territory, it maybe wasn't quite as bad as it's been in a couple games there was against Alabama 2 weeks prior. Just still 1 turnover as opposed to 2. But, all night, really, besides maybe a couple drives here or there, it felt like Tennessee was moving the ball with ease on Kentucky. And only had 28 points, and 2 of those were very, very short fields because of turnovers.
Yeah, this is definitely one of those games where Tennessee's players say it a lot after games, and they go back and watch the tape, and they feel like there were points left on the field. This was certainly one of those games, considering you had 2 long passes that would have gone for touchdowns and then 3 missed field goals. But again, Tennessee did what they needed to do to get the win, although they did not cover. Cover would have been around 17-18. Is that correct?
Yeah, 17 and a half.
So either those 3 field goals or maybe one of those touchdowns would have got them pretty close. Did you get pizza sauce on my stats?
No. You got pizza.
I think that must have
you
been
got
you.
Pizza stains.
There's no way I got pizza stains on my own
Your
stats.
stats haven't been anywhere close to me eating pizza.
My stats are flawless. I handled them
You
with
didn't even
care.
have Holden State's stats on there. Don't tell me they're flawless.
Who had 2 slices of pizza and who had 1? That means you had double the opportunity to get pizza sauce on my
I
stats.
had 0 opportunity because I didn't eat it near your stat sheet.
I'm getting really sick of these post-game press conferences.
It's not even a
Post-game.
press conference. See, you have no idea what's going on. You're on another planet right now.
Where's Jack Foster?
Tennessee's defense tonight.
Where's Jack Foster when you need him? Tennessee's defense tonight. Let's talk about that. So, first play of the game, or first drive of the game, I can't remember. First play.
Yeah.
50-yard run from Kentucky. That wasn't something that certainly the people in the building were familiar with. Seeing Tennessee's crowd got quiet in a hurry. They did ramp back up because Kentucky was trying to score right next to the student section, but you could tell that was very deflating right off the bat. Kentucky's first drive goes for 6 plays, 72 yards. Then 6 plays, 75 yards. Then 4 plays, 18 yards. A little bit uncharacteristic of a start for Tennessee's defense, but then they lock in 3 and out, 3 and out. 10-play drive to get a field goal, 3 and out, 3 and out. That's how Kentucky entered the fourth quarter. Just sort of broad takeaways of the defense, and then we'll kind of go and narrow the focus a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I thought they did not come out very sharp. And I mean, by Tennessee's defensive standards this season, which obviously has been set very high, I honestly don't think they played that great tonight. Again, the red zone defense continues to be really good. A huge stand on that first drive, turning Kentucky over on downs at the 5-yard line. But in the next drive, Kentucky goes right down the field, really 3 big pass plays, one of them on third down, and then a busted coverage led to a 27-yard touchdown for the tight end. So Tennessee, they come out poorly. I think Kentucky had 161 yards in the first quarter, which is the most yards they've had in a single quarter in any game this season.
I would imagine that might be the most that Tennessee's let up in a single quarter.
Yeah, I would think so.
I can't really think of
nothing comes to mind off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Now from there, Tennessee's defense was good.
Yes.
After the first quarter, not elite given how bad Kentucky's offense has been this season. I mean, it's been worse than the SEC by a long shot. So they still gave up 11 points the rest of the way, but they were solid. And I guess the negative, before I get to the positive, the negative I think is from a rushing standpoint. This was Tennessee's worst game from a run defense standpoint all season, which surprised me. Kentucky runs for 168 yards when you take out the sack yards. They ran for 192 yards. I mean, we haven't seen anybody run on Tennessee like that this season. Now the positives, 3 turnovers they forced were huge in this game, and the first one really didn't end up being because Dylan Sampson fumbled right after it. But the next 2 were massive. Kentucky's first drive in the second half, with Tennessee trailing 10-7. Right after Max Gilbert had missed that 34-yard field goal, Josh Joseph strip sacks Brock Vandegrift. Tennessee recovers. I think 2 drives later, Will Brooks jumps a Gavin Wimsatt slant pass and returns it down to the 10-yard line. Both those set up Tennessee scores and gave Tennessee short fields for 2 really critical touchdowns that gave them their first lead of the night and pushed that lead to 2 possessions. At the time, it kind of felt like that would be, it. Kentucky answered with a really nice drive to score. But those on a night where Tennessee's defense, again, it didn't feel like, to me at least, they were at their best. Maybe I'm being a little too critical, judging it very much based off the bad Kentucky offense they played. Even though they weren't at their best from a every play standpoint, forced some huge turnovers, a big stop inside the 10-yard line, and certainly did enough for Tennessee to win another game while its offense was sputtering for a lot of it.
Yeah, absolutely. You talk about that first drive of the game. Tennessee's defense was bending. They were bending. But, man, we've seen it time and time again this year. They've just got this innate ability to lock down in the red zone. And Kentucky did go for the 4th down right there, which I was a bit surprised by. I felt like if you were Kentucky, maybe go ahead and take the points to start out the game. Would have been 10-0 if the same kind of events unfolded. Excuse me. But Tennessee's defense did a great job of standing up right there. And again, It's something that we've seen from this defense before this season. It's good that it's for them, that it's continuing, right? It wasn't just a flash. It seems like they're legitimately good. And that's something that the players have talked about a lot. They take pride in that. Obviously, they take pride in keeping opposing teams out of the checkerboards. But I think that when you really get down to the red zone, these guys lock in together and they want to be, they want to be a brick wall. They do not want to let anybody back there. And I think you see that from an effort standpoint. Tennessee had to face a backup quarterback for the millionth time this season. It felt like
7 out of 8, I think. Alabama is the only game where Jalen Milroe played the entire game. Yeah. That's the only one that's the case. Now, a lot of those are benching. Kent State kind of already had played 2 quarterbacks this season. Yeah. Chattanooga went to their backup. Now, Arkansas and Florida were both injuries. Oklahoma was a benching. The one I don't remember was NC State. I don't know if I don't really know if it was a benching of Grayson McCall, but I don't think he got hurt either. I think when they were just down by a ton in the fourth quarter, they just put the backup in and get everybody healthy going into next week.
Get some guys reps.
I'm not 100% positive on that. So, it's maybe not as lucky as it sounds. I mean, you say that, and it just sounds like it's really lucky. It's not as simple as that. A lot of it's just been Tennessee's defense forcing opponents to make changes because they've been so good. But they've certainly got a couple breaks, too. And look, I mean, Kentucky was benched Brock Vandagriff in the second half last week and played Gavin Wimsatt. Yeah. So it's not like Brock Vandagriff's in the Heisman conversation or anything like that. But
they were also very sneaky about and publicly sneaky. I'm sure internally they knew exactly what they were doing the entire time. I wonder if there was even a question about it. But leading into the week, they were a little bit sneaky in who was going to start because of what Ryan said right there. You talked about the turnovers a minute ago. One of those turnovers, I believe the first one, Tennessee missed points on. Maybe it was a field goal.
Dylan Sampson fumbled.
Okay, it was the Dylan Sampson fumble.
Yeah, Andre Turrentine had that interception on maybe a tip ball, a third down throw that I think maybe went off to the receiver's fingertips, and he made a nice little diving catch on.
Yes.
In the second quarter, maybe first quarter.
Yeah.
First quarter, because Kentucky was driving to the south end zone.
So start of the second half, Tennessee gets the ball first. They go down the field. They miss a field goal attempt. Kentucky gets it very quickly. They fumble it. That was the second turnover of the day. Tennessee went down then and got a touchdown, 5 plays, 28 yards. And then a little bit later on, still in the third quarter, just about 10 minutes later, Brock Vandagriff does throw that interception after an 8-play, 28-yard. Was that Vandagriff?
No, that was Wimsatt.
Okay, that was Wimsatt.
I think that was his first pass attempt. They'd really
because that was the running drive where it was like 8 plays for 28 yards. They must have been just running it. And then once again, Tennessee takes that turnover. They turn into points right away. Look, when your offense isn't always going to be a threat, although it was improved today, those are huge moments when you can get that turnover and you can immediately capitalize on them. And if Dylan Sampson doesn't fumble, obviously we can do a lot of what ifs for this game. But if Dylan Sampson doesn't fumble, granted, Max Gilbert didn't really hit his field goals today. Yeah. But they had an opportunity for points there as well. And sometimes that's the most you can ask for your defense. Give your offense opportunities, and they did in those moments.
For sure, and those were big because of how hard Tennessee or how bad Tennessee was at. Maybe not sustaining drives, but just stacking a bunch of good plays on top of one another and finishing drives. They were able to have some short fields and some quick drives that they turned into points. Like you said, I think the Dylan Sampson 7-yard touchdown after Joseph strip sack with 7 plays. Miles Kitselman scored on the second play after the Will Brooks pick. Those plays were big, and Tennessee's defense just continues to pick up the offense and give them a lot of opportunities, and then also keeping them in games when they're a little stagnant or staggering in the first half.
So one stat that I want to point back to, and this is from Todd Furman of CBS Sports HQ. Todd Furman. It's late. It's 2 a.m. Recording for about half an hour.
It is an odd spelled Furman.
He wrote last week, Tennessee is the only FBS team to allow under 20 points in every game this season. They're the 5th SEC team since 2000 to hold each of their first 7 opponents under 20. The previous 4 all won the national title. 03 LSU, 11 Bama, 12 Bama, and 2021 UGA. Tennessee continues to be the only FBS team this year to allow under 20 points in every game this season as they hold Kentucky to 18. Josh Josephs after the game sounded pretty, I don't want to say dejected. I think that's too far, but you could tell that they felt like they let up too many yards. They felt like they let up too many points. You can tell that I'm not sure it's this stat exactly, but you can tell that this sort of mindset weighs heavy on their shoulders, and it means something to them. And man, I don't know about national championship projections. Obviously, none of those games were won in the course of a 12-game chaotic playoff, which we'll experience for the first time here coming up this year. But man, that's some pretty good company to be in, and really kind of highlights just how good this Tennessee defense has been. I know they haven't necessarily gone up against a 2019 LSU or even a 2022 Tennessee or anything like that. We just talked about all the backup quarterbacks that Tennessee has seen. But man, 8 games into a season, that's a pretty darn impressive feat.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. They've been really good. They've been the big reason why Tennessee is 7-1, the biggest reason to this point. Look, I don't think Tennessee's national championship team. I'm not even sure they're going to make the playoffs. But what I will say for the people that, and look, I don't blame anyone that's pulling their hair out watching Tennessee right now, and they're frustrated. Just a lot of flawed teams in college football this year. I don't know if it's
6 lost today, something like that.
6 ranked teams lost
6
today. Yeah,
playoff contending teams.
Yeah, really to that point, very good day for Tennessee's playoff hopes outside of them just winning. The Clemson loss was big for them. The A&M loss was good for them. Big 12 teams, a couple Big 12 teams fell. So I guess the point I was making. We are. Oh, Penn State.
Penn State, yeah.
Penn State's still going to make the playoffs. Yes. So that's, might be a Tennessee opponent if they make it.
I'd go to Happy Valley.
Yeah, that'd be a fun trip.
That'd be a good one.
You got me losing my train of thought.
God, I'm sorry.
A lot of flawed teams is the point. Yes. I don't know if it's the portal, if it's the super seniors, or what it is. But look, Georgia struggled with this Kentucky team, albeit on the road. They struggled with the Florida team playing their third-string quarterback for most of the day today. I mean, very few teams you really look at and say, wow, they haven't had a couple games where they haven't looked great against not great teams, and even fewer that have had really none of those. So it's a lot of parity. I think there's 5 teams that are undefeated still. BYU, Army, Miami, Oregon, Indiana. There are 5 teams that haven't lost a game in the FBS this year. So a lot of flawed teams, a lot of parity. Tennessee, again, they got to put a lot together to become true serious players to be able to emerge out of that. But they're not alone either as being one of these top 10, 15 teams that's in the playoff hunt, and can be a little maddening and be inconsistent.
No doubt about it. Anything else that we might have missed from this game, top to bottom?
I don't think so.
As a nerd myself and as kind of a content, a graphic design geek, just major props to Tennessee's team. Ridiculously good stuff this week from that whole team and everything that they do. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I don't think it is. We will obviously be back for the next game against Mississippi State next week, although that's going to be a busy day for Tennessee fans who are going to be watching stuff. But can you give us kind of any preview of what your day is going to look like?
I'll give it a full weekend. Friday night, Tennessee baseball, Fall World Series at Smoky Stadium in Kodak, Tennessee. I'm not sure what time that is. Probably should know. Then into Saturday morning, we'll leave early to head to Louisville, Tennessee basketball, the second game of the year at the KFC Yum with an exclamation point.
Yum!
Yum! That's an exclamation point.
Yum!
I had to say it with an exclamation point.
That's good.
KFC Yum Center against Louisville. That tips at noon Eastern time. We'll talk to Rick Barnes after the game, hit back on the road, and 7 p.m. Eastern time. Tennessee faces the Mississippi State on ESPN. Bulldogs got their second win of the season today against UMass.
The Minutemen.
Still looking for their first SEC win in the Jeff Levy era. And Tennessee will face an offense. They got a Van Buren boy. They're playing a little bit better. But a defense that's been really bad. So
Levy is a Heupel guy too, right?
Yeah,
he was their buddies.
Well, he was Heupel's OC at UCF before Alex Golesh.
Who made the news this weekend?
Yes, he did. He had a little Jim
Schwartz. Oh my goodness! Well, blow by.
Jim Harbaugh blow by on the handshake with Tom Herman, who I completely forgot was at FAU.
I forgot he was in college football.
Yeah. So there's that.
It's going to be a long weekend. Ryan and I, at some point on Saturday night, we will end our day right back here in this booth as we talk to you guys here on the Rocky Top Insider Press Pass. But again, thank you so much for listening along. We got a ton of content up on the site right now. Not only on the site, RockyTopInsider.com, but you're probably watching this on YouTube. Go ahead and look through YouTube. We've got post-game press conferences from Josh Heupel, Nico Iamaleava, Dylan Sampson, Joshua Josephs, Miles Kitselman,
Will Brooks,
Arian Carter. I think there's one more I'm forgetting now. I've got through all of them except for one.
Whoever it is, if you're for some reason watching this, Rick didn't mention you because he hates you. It doesn't think you're good at football.
No, that's so untrue that I'm for the people.
Narrative.
I was taking pictures down here.
That's true.
What were you doing?
That's a good.
You weren't taking pictures of the players.
That's a good point.
Taking pictures of the players. Go and find all of our content. You know where it is. Hey, thanks so much for listening to the RTI Press Pass. We're 8 games into this thing. So many of you guys have been through it, have been with us through it all, and we're super appreciative of that. By the way, Monday starts the Tennessee basketball season. Once again, Ryan and I will be doing a little bit of post-game work for that one as well. So, man, it's crossover season. We got a lot going on. Always appreciative of those who follow along with Rocky Top Insider. By the way, a little shout-out to RTI. One of our tweets, as the lights go out in Neyland Stadium, it made the Jumbotron. That was pretty nice. I hope the whole world got to see it. We got like 100,000 followers quickly. We didn't get that, but most of the people in the stadium, I think, were already following. So, pretty good.
Yeah, pretty good. I was going to joke a minute ago when you were complimenting all of the video stuff and graphic design stuff this week that I was going to say, and you're not just saying that because they put one of our tweets on Jumbotron.
We didn't even ask for that. They just did it. What can you say? What can you say about the boys? What can you say? Oh, that means it's time to go.
Yeah, let's get out of here.
Ryan Schumpert at rshump00, SCHUMP. Rick Butler at Rick_Butler, RIC, no K, like the nature boy himself. Number 7, Tennessee defeats Kentucky in the SEC border battle by a score of 28-18. Tennessee will be back in Neyland Stadium next Saturday night to host Mississippi State in the next SEC game. Thanks so much for listening to the RTI Press Pass podcast. See you back for the next one.